The flash of cameras at the Metropolitan Charity Gala was blinding, but not nearly as blinding as the sight of Porter Sullivan clutching his young fiancée's waist, sneering at the woman he had discarded like yesterday's trash. He thought Vera was there to beg. He thought she was there to pick up the scraps of the life he stole from her. He was wrong. When the heavy velvet curtains parted, silence descended on the ballroom. Vera didn't just walk in. She floated, draped in a gown woven with 2,000 diamonds, worth more than Porter's entire company. Tonight wasn't about attendance. It was about an execution. Rain lashed against the single-pane window of the small studio apartment in Queens. Vera Molyneux stared at the heavy cream envelope resting on her chipped laminate table. The calligraphy was embossed in gold leaf, swirling elegantly to spell out her name. It was an invitation to the annual St. Jude's Winter Gala at the Pierre Hotel, the most exclusive event of the New York social season. 3 years ago, she would have been organizing it. She would have been the one approving the floral arrangements, managing the guest list, and ensuring the champagne was chilled to exactly 45 degrees. Back then, she was Mrs. Porter Sullivan, the dutiful, invisible engine behind the soaring success of Sullivan Tech. Now, she was just Vera, the woman who had been divorced via a text message while she was grocery shopping. She picked up the invitation. It wasn't a mistake. It was a taunt. Inside the envelope was a handwritten note on Porter's personal stationery. Vera, I know things have been tight since the settlement ran dry. Lydia suggested we invite you. Come for the food. It's better than what you're used to now. Try not to embarrass us. P. Vera felt the familiar cold knot of humiliation tighten in her stomach. The settlement hadn't run dry. There had barely been a settlement. Porter had hidden assets in offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands and used a team of sharks to paint her as an incompetent spender. She had walked away with enough to rent this shoebox and restart her life as a freelance copy editor. She looked at her reflection in the darkened window. At 32, she looked tired. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a messy bun, and she wore an oversized sweater to combat the drafty apartment. Porter, on the other hand, was everywhere. He was on the cover of Forbes. He was giving interviews about visionary leadership. And hanging off his arm in every photo was Lydia Banks, a 22-year-old Instagram model who called herself an aesthetics consultant. Lydia was the one who had sent this. Porter was too busy to handwrite notes. This was Lydia marking her territory, rubbing salt in the wound, daring the ex-wife to show her face among the elite who had shunned her. Vera's phone buzzed. It was a notification from a private number. She swiped it open. "Did you get the invite? Please tell me you're going to burn it." The message was from Dominic. Vera smiled, a rare, genuine expression. Dominic increasingly had become the only person from her old life who still spoke to her. Dominic Vance. No, not Vance, she corrected herself, remembering he hated his middle name. Dominic Thorne. Wait, no Thorne either. Dominic Rawlings. Dominic Rawlings, the reclusive heir to the Rawlings shipping fortune. He had been Porter's silent partner, the man who actually provided the capital for Sullivan Tech to start, though Porter took all the credit. "I got it," Vera typed back. "Porter thinks I'm destitute." "Aren't you?" Dominic replied, followed by a winking emoji. Technically on paper, yes," Vera wrote. "But grandmothers have a way of leaving things in very secure, very private trusts." It was the secret she had kept even during the marriage. Her grandmother, a matriarch of old European money, had never trusted Porter. She had bypassed Vera's parents and left the bulk of the family estate, a portfolio of jewelry and property managed by a blind trust in Zurich, solely to Vera accessible only after her 30th birthday or in the event of a divorce. When the divorce happened, Vera had been too broken, too shell-shocked to fight Porter for his money. She just wanted out. She hadn't touched the trust fund yet. She had lived simply, healing, watching, waiting for the right moment. "I'm thinking of going," Vera texted. The phone rang immediately. She answered. "You're insane," Dominic's deep voice rumbled. "They will eat you alive. Porter has been telling everyone you had a breakdown. He says you're unstable. If you walk in there in a department store dress, Lydia will spill wine on you within 5 minutes and laugh about it." "I'm not going in a department store dress, Dom," Vera said, her voice dropping an octave. She walked over to her closet and pushed aside the heavy winter coats. In the back, hidden under a garment bag, was a locked metal briefcase. "What are you planning, Viv?" "I'm planning to return the ring," she said softly. "The engagement ring? The little 1-carat thing he gave you?" "No," Vera said. "The other one. And I need a favor. I need you to make a call to the House of Garrod in London. Tell them the owner of the Midnight Star is ready to have it set." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. "The Midnight Star," Dominic breathed. "Vera, that diamond hasn't been seen since the 1920s. It's a myth." "It's not a myth. It's my inheritance, and I need a dress that can hold the weight of it." "Vera," Dominic said, his tone shifting from worry to wicked amusement, "if you do this, you realize you can't go back to being the quiet ex-wife in the apartment, right? This is war." "Porter declared war when he took my dignity," Vera said, staring at the invitation. "I'm just bringing the nukes." The Pierre Hotel ballroom was a sea of black ties and designer silk. The air smelled of expensive perfume and ambition. Porter Sullivan stood near the ice sculpture, swirling a glass of scotch that cost more than most people's car payments. "You look tense, darling," Lydia cooed, leaning against him. She was wearing a red dress that was cut aggressively low, designed to grab attention. It worked. Men were staring, and Porter loved it. He viewed Lydia as he viewed his Bugatti, a high-maintenance asset that proved his status. "I'm fine," Porter muttered, scanning the room. "Just business. The merger with Archer Industries is stalling. Old man Archer is hesitating." "He'll come around," Lydia said dismissively, checking her reflection in her phone screen. "You're Porter Sullivan. You always win." "I do, don't I?" He smirked. "Do you think she will come?" Lydia asked, a cruel glint in her eyes. "I bet she shows up in something tragic. Maybe a pantsuit. God, she always dressed like a librarian." Porter laughed. "Vera? She doesn't have the spine. I only sent the invite to remind her of her place. She's probably sitting at home crying over old photo albums." "I heard she's working at a bookstore or something," Lydia giggled. "Can you imagine? Mrs. CEO scanning barcodes." "Let's not talk about her," Porter said, straightening his tie. "Tonight is about the future. Once I announce the Archer deal, stock prices will triple. We'll be billionaires, Lydia. Real billionaires." Across the room, the atmosphere began to shift. It started as a ripple near the entrance, a hush that spread outward like a wave. The string quartet, sensing the change in the room, faltered for a beat before recovering. "What's going on?" Porter craned his neck. "Is the mayor here?" "Maybe it's a celebrity," Lydia said, standing on her toes. The crowd parted. It wasn't the mayor. At the top of the grand staircase stood a woman. For a second, Porter didn't recognize her. The woman had posture like steel, her chin held high, her eyes sweeping the room with a cold, imperious gaze. She was wearing a gown that defied physics. It was a deep, midnight blue velvet, so dark it looked like a void, hugging every curve of her body before cascading into a dramatic train. But it wasn't the fabric that made people gasp. Stitched into the velvet, catching the chandelier light, were thousands of diamonds. They swirled in a pattern like a galaxy, shimmering with every breath she took. And around her neck sat a stone that sucked the air out of the room, a massive teardrop blue diamond that pulsed with an inner fire. "Who is that?" Lydia whispered, her voice trembling with jealousy. "Is that a royal?" The woman began to descend the stairs. She didn't look down. She moved with a predator's grace. As she reached the bottom step, the light hit her face. Porter dropped his glass. It shattered on the marble floor, splashing scotch onto Lydia's red dress. "Porter! You idiot!" Lydia shrieked, jumping back. But Porter didn't hear her. He was paralyzed. He was staring at the ghost of the woman he had destroyed. "Vera," he whispered. Vera didn't stop. She walked straight through the center of the room. The crowd, instinctively sensing power, stepped back to create a path for her. She wasn't just wearing expensive jewelry. She was wearing history. The necklace alone was worth more than the entire building. She stopped 5 feet from Porter. The silence in the ballroom was absolute. Even the waiters had stopped moving. Vera looked at Porter, then at Lydia, who was frantically dabbing at her scotch-stained dress with a napkin. "Hello, Porter," Vera said. Her voice was smooth, rich, and carried effortlessly through the silent room. "Thank you for the invitation. You were right. The food does look better than what I've been used to." Porter stammered, his face turning a blotchy red. "Vera? What? Where did you get? Is that fake?" He pointed a shaking finger at the necklace. "You rented a costume. You think you can walk in here and play pretend?" Lydia, sensing an opening, stepped forward, her face twisted in a sneer. "Oh, honey. Did you rob a theatre prop department? It's tacky. You look like a disco ball." A low murmur went through the crowd. Some people chuckled nervously. Then a deep, authoritative voice cut through the noise. "I can assure you, Miss Banks, there is nothing prop about the Midnight Star." Dominic Rawlings stepped out from the shadows behind Vera. He was dressed in a bespoke tuxedo, looking sharper and more dangerous than anyone had seen him in years. He moved to Vera's side, placing a protective hand on the small of her back. "Dominic?" Porter's eyes bulged. "What are you doing with her?" "Escorting the lady," Dominic said coolly, "and ensuring that no one spills cheap scotch on a gown valued at $2.5 million. The gasp from the crowd was audible. $2.5 million. "That's impossible," Porter hissed. "She's broke. I made sure of it." Vera took a step closer to Porter. She smelled of jasmine and cold, hard cash. "You made sure Mrs. Sullivan was broke, Porter," she said, a small, icy smile playing on her lips. "But you never bothered to ask who Vera Molyneux was before she met you. You assumed I was nobody because I was quiet. You mistook silence for weakness." She reached into a clutch, a small, diamond-encrusted box, and pulled out a folded document. "Speaking of business," Vera said, raising her voice slightly so the nearby board members of Archer Industries could hear. "I believe you're trying to close the Archer merger tonight, using the intellectual property patents from Sullivan Tech as collateral." "That's none of your business," Porter snapped, panic flaring in his eyes. "Actually it is," Vera said. "Because according to the prenup you were so eager to have me sign, the one your lawyer drafted to protect your assets, there was a clause about original contributions. You forgot something, Porter. The code for the core algorithm, the one your company is built on. I wrote it in our living room while you were out playing golf." She held up the document. "I filed for copyright restoration this morning. As of 9 a.m., Sullivan Tech is utilizing stolen intellectual property. My intellectual property. Porter felt the room spin. The Archer board members were whispering frantically. Lydia looked from Porter to Vera, realizing her meal ticket was suddenly looking very unstable. "You can't do this," Porter whispered. "I just did," Vera replied. She turned to Dominic. "I'm bored. Shall we get a drink? The air in here is suddenly very stale." "After you," Dominic said. As they turned to walk away, the cameras flashed like lightning. Vera didn't look back. The drama Porter had expected, the crying ex-wife, had been replaced by a nuclear strike. But the night was just beginning. Porter wasn't going to go down without a fight, and he had a card left to play that Vera didn't know about. The ballroom of the Pierre Hotel had transformed from a venue of celebration into a coliseum of gossip. As Vera and Dominic exited through the heavy double doors, the murmur inside escalated into a roar. Back near the ice sculpture, Porter Sullivan stood frozen. His hand was still raised in the air, pointing at the empty space where his ex-wife had just eviscerated his ego. "Mr. Sullivan." A dry, raspy voice spoke from his left. Porter snapped his head around. It was Arthur Archer, the CEO of Archer Industries. The old man was frowning, his bushy eyebrows knit together in displeasure. "Arthur," Porter said, his voice cracking. He cleared his throat, forcing a desperate smile. "I apologize for that display. Vera she's clearly unwell, delusional. We can sign the papers in the private suite upstairs. I have the champagne ready." Arthur Archer didn't move. He looked at Porter with the cold detachment of a man who had survived 4 decades on Wall Street. "The papers reference the proprietary compression algorithm as the primary asset of Sullivan Tech. That was the valuation pin." "Yes, and it is," Porter insisted, sweat beginning to bead on his forehead despite the air conditioning. "I own it. It's mine." "She said she filed for copyright restoration," Arthur said slowly. "My legal team is in the lobby. I just texted them to check the Federal Registry." "It's a lie," Porter shouted, causing heads to turn again. "She's a copy editor. She corrects grammar for a living. She didn't write that code." Arthur's phone buzzed. He lifted it, adjusted his spectacles, and read the message. The silence that followed lasted only 3 seconds, but to Porter it felt like a life sentence. Arthur pocketed the phone. "The filing exists. It's contested. Until this litigation is resolved, Archer Industries is withdrawing its offer. Good evening, Mr. Sullivan." "You can't do that," Porter grabbed Arthur's sleeve. "We have a handshake deal." Arthur looked at Porter's hand on his suit jacket with utter disgust. "Get your hand off me, son. Before I have security, remove it." Porter recoiled. He watched as the billion-dollar merger walked out the door. The room was spinning. He turned to find Lydia, needing an ally, needing someone to tell him he was still the king. Lydia was standing 3 feet away, furiously typing on her phone. "Lydia," Porter gasped. "We need to leave. Now." Lydia looked up. Her expression wasn't sympathetic. It was calculated. "Porter, the New York Post just tweeted a picture of Vera. They're calling her the Diamond Duchess. Everyone is talking about the necklace. Do you know how many followers I'm losing right now just by standing next to you?" "You're worried about followers?" Porter hissed, his veins bulging in his neck. "I just lost a $400 million buyout." "Well, fix it," Lydia snapped, smoothing her dress. "I didn't sign up for a bankrupt boyfriend. You said you were a visionary. You look like a fraud." She turned on her heel and walked toward the bar, leaving him completely alone in the center of the crowd. Outside, the air was crisp and cold. Vera sat in the passenger seat of Dominic's vintage Aston Martin, her hands trembling slightly. The adrenaline was fading, leaving behind the stark reality of what she had just done. Dominic slid into the driver's seat. He didn't start the car immediately. He turned to look at her, the street lights casting shadows across his sharp jawline. "Breathe, Viv," he said softly. "Did I go too far?" she asked, looking down at the massive blue diamond resting against her collarbone. The look on his face. "I wanted to hurt him, Dom. I wanted him to feel small. But now, he's going to come for me. He's like a cornered rat." "Let him come," Dominic said, starting the engine. The car purred to life with a deep, throaty growl. "You have something he doesn't have anymore." "Money?" Vera asked. "Credibility," Dominic corrected. "And me." He pulled the car into traffic, heading away from the chaos of Fifth Avenue. "I didn't just call the House of Garrod for the necklace, Vera. I've been busy too. While Porter was busy buying yachts and posing for magazines, I've been quietly acquiring voting shares in Sullivan Tech through shell companies." Vera stared at him. "You're the hostile entity he was complaining about last month?" Dominic smirked. "I own 14% of his company. With your copyright claim freezing his assets, his stock is going to plummet tomorrow morning. When it hits rock bottom, I'm going to buy the rest." "Why?" Vera asked. "Why go to all this trouble for me?" Dominic reached over and covered her hand with his. His skin was warm, grounding her. "Because, Vera, when you were married to him, you were the only person in that entire circle who treated me like a human being, not a checkbook. And because I hate bullies." They drove in silence for a moment, the city lights blurring past. "Where are we going?" Vera asked. "I can't go back to my apartment. He knows where I live." "We're going to the St. Regis," Dominic said. "I have a suite. You need security, and you need a lawyer who isn't afraid of Porter Sullivan. I've already called Jared Cohen." Vera's eyes widened. "Jared Cohen, the shark of Wall Street. He costs $2,000 an hour." "He owes me a favor," Dominic said. "And starting tomorrow, you're going to need him. Porter won't just sue you, Vera. He's going to try to destroy you." Porter Sullivan did not sleep. He paced the floor of his penthouse, overlooking Central Park, the glass of whiskey in his hand replenished for the 5th time. The apartment was cold. Lydia had gone to stay with a friend in Soho. On the coffee table lay his tablet, glowing with the morning headlines. "Ex-wife crashes gala in millions. Sullivan deal dead. Who is the mystery heiress? Sullivan Tech shares tumble 30% in pre-market trading." He picked up the tablet and hurled it across the room. It smashed against the limestone fireplace, shattering into plastic and glass shards. "Sir?" Porter spun around. His personal attorney, a man named Roger Blaine, stood in the doorway. Roger was a man of few morals and expensive suits. He was the one who had structured the divorce settlement to ensure Vera got pennies. "Fix this, Roger," Porter snarled. "Tell me you have a plan. She embarrassed me. She tanked the stock. I want her head on a pike." Roger walked into the room, stepping carefully over the broken tablet. He placed a leather briefcase on the table and clicked it open. "We have a problem with the copyright," Roger admitted. "I dug into the old files. The timestamps on the source code. They match her laptop, not yours. If this goes to court, we lose the algorithm." "I don't care about the truth," Porter screamed. "I care about winning. Find me leverage." "I found something better than leverage," Roger said calmly. "I found a crime." Porter stopped pacing. "What?" Roger pulled out a file. "Vera's sudden wealth. That necklace. The dress. The confidence. You said she was broke. She was supposed to be." In the divorce decree, Roger tapped a document. Vera signed an affidavit of financial disclosure. She swore under penalty of perjury that she had disclosed all assets. If that necklace is hers, if she has a trust fund she didn't declare. Porter's eyes lit up. A slow, cruel smile spread across his face. She committed fraud. Exactly, Roger said. If she had access to significant assets during the marriage and hid them to avoid sharing them with you, the entire divorce settlement is void. We can sue her for fraud, perjury, and breach of contract. We can freeze her assets immediately, including the trust, including the necklace. Do it, Porter whispered. Freeze everything. I want her on the street. I want her in jail. There is one more thing, Roger added. Dominic Rawlings. He's backing her. Dominic is a recluse. Porter dismissed him. He hates conflict. He owns a significant block of your stock, Porter, and he was seen leaving with her. If they are conspiring to manipulate the stock price, her crashing the party, him shorting the stock, that's market manipulation. That's federal prison time. Porter laughed. It was a jagged, manic sound. Perfect. Draft the complaint. Call the police. Tell them my ex-wife stole corporate secrets and is using illicit funds to flee the country. Make it sound like she's a flight risk. 3 hours later, Vera was sitting in the parlour of the St. Regis suite, sipping tea that tasted like ash. Jared Cohen, a man who looked more like a linebacker than a lawyer, was pacing the rug. It's a solid move, Jared said, his voice gravelly. Porter is claiming you committed perjury by not disclosing the trust fund during the divorce. I didn't have access to it then, Vera argued. My grandmother's will was specific. It only unlocked after the divorce was final, or I turned 30. The law is tricky, Vera, Jared warned. It's about beneficial interest. If you knew about it and didn't list it as a future interest, a judge could see it as concealment. Porter has filed an emergency injunction. He's frozen your bank accounts. Vera felt the blood drain from her face. He can do that. He just did. He's also filed a criminal complaint alleging theft of trade secrets regarding the algorithm. The police are likely looking for you right now for questioning. The door to the suite opened and Dominic walked in. He looked grim. He was holding a newspaper. It gets worse, Dominic said. He threw the paper on the table. The front page of the New York Chronicle featured a grainy photo of Vera from college, looking disheveled at a party, next to a photo of her at the gala. The headline screamed, "The Black Widow of Tech. Did Vera Sullivan plot her husband's downfall for profit?" He's spinning the narrative, Dominic said. He's painting you as a mastermind who married him to steal his ideas, hid money, and then sabotaged his company when he tried to move on. The public loves a villain. Vera. And right now, you look like a very rich, very vindictive one. Vera stood up, her hands clenching into fists. I lived in a studio apartment for 3 years. I ate instant noodles while he bought Ferraris. How can they believe this? Because Porter owns the narrative, Dominic said. He has the PR firms. He has the media contacts. Then we change the narrative, Vera said, a cold fire igniting in her eyes. Jared, how do we unfreeze the assets? We go to court, Jared said, but it will take weeks. In the meantime, you have no access to cash, and Porter is going to try to drain you dry with legal fees. I have cash, Dominic said firmly. I'll cover the legal fees. No, Vera said. She turned to Dominic. If you pay for me, it proves his point. It makes me look like a gold digger finding a new sponsor. I have to do this on my own. Vera, you can't, Dominic argued. Your accounts are frozen. Not all of them, Vera said. She walked over to her bag and pulled out the velvet box containing the Midnight Star necklace. Vera, don't, Dominic warned. That's your heritage. It's a rock, Dominic, Vera said, staring at the blue diamond. My heritage is my brain. My heritage is the code I wrote that built his empire. I'm not going to let a piece of jewelry weigh me down while he drowns me. She looked at Jared. Can you sell this? Today? For cash. Under the table if necessary, but legally is preferred. Jared looked at the necklace, then at Vera. I know a private collector in Dubai. He's been hunting for the Midnight Star for 20 years. He'll wire the money to an escrow account in Switzerland within the hour, but you'll be taking a loss. Maybe 60% of the value. Do it, Vera said. Vera, Dominic started. No, Dominic, she interrupted him. Porter thinks he's fighting the quiet girl who knits on the weekends. He thinks he's fighting a woman who cares about appearances. He's about to find out that I'm willing to burn everything down to get the truth out. She turned back to Jared. Sell it. Then take the money and hire a forensic accountant. I want you to audit Sullivan Tech. If Porter hid money in the Cayman Islands during our marriage, I want to find it. I'm not just defending myself anymore. I'm suing him for the other half of the company. Jared grinned, a shark smelling blood. Now that I can do. Suddenly, there was a heavy pounding on the hotel room door. Vera Sullivan, a voice boomed from the hallway. This is the NYPD. Open the door. Dominic moved in front of Vera, shielding her. They found us. Let them in, Vera said, smoothing her skirt. She looked at her reflection in the mirror. She didn't look tired anymore. She looked dangerous. I'm ready for my close-up. The handcuffs were cold, but Vera's skin was colder. As the two officers escorted her out of the St. Regis lobby, the world exploded into a frenzy of strobe lights. Porter had tipped off the press. Of course he had. He wanted this moment immortalized. The fallen socialite, the thief, the desperate ex-wife being hauled away like a common criminal. Ms. Molyneux, did you steal the diamond? Vera, is it true you embezzled from Sullivan Tech? Are you broke, Vera? The questions were shouted like accusations, overlapping into a wall of noise. Vera didn't lower her head. She didn't cover her face with a jacket. She looked directly into the camera lenses, her expression unreadable, her posture perfect. She treated the walk to the police cruiser not as a march of shame, but as a runway. She knew that every news channel in New York was broadcasting this live. Inside the cruiser, the noise dulled. Vera leaned her head against the wire mesh separator. She closed her eyes and visualized the timeline. Jared Cohen had the necklace. The wire transfer to the Swiss escrow account should have cleared by now. She was technically liquid to the tune of $1.4 million, the fire sale price of the Midnight Star, but to the world, she was destitute. At the precinct, the atmosphere was grimy and smelled of stale coffee and disinfectant. They processed her efficiently. Fingerprints, mugshot. The humiliation was designed to break her, to make her feel small. But Vera had lived with Porter Sullivan for 5 years. She was immune to psychological warfare. She sat in the interrogation room for 2 hours before Detective Miller entered. He looked tired and tossed a file onto the metal table. Your ex-husband has filed a sworn statement, Miller said, sitting down heavily. He claims you stole proprietary source code on a hard drive when you moved out 3 years ago. He also claims the necklace you wore last night was purchased with funds embezzled from a corporate expense account he just discovered was missing. Vera looked at the detective. Detective Miller, do I look like a woman who knows how to embezzle corporate funds? You look like a woman who showed up in a $2 million dress after pleading poverty during a divorce, Miller countered. That makes you suspicious. Or it makes me resourceful, Vera said calmly. I haven't spoken without my lawyer, and I won't. I'm right here. A booming voice came from the door. Jared Cohen strode in, his suit costing more than the detective's annual salary. He didn't look happy. He looked ready to bite someone. "Detective," Jared barked, "you're holding my client on a baseless complaint filed by a man who is currently being investigated for securities fraud by the SEC. Did you know that? Or did Mr. Sullivan forget to mention his stock is in free fall, and he's using the NYPD as his personal PR firm?" Miller blinked. "Securities fraud? The copyright claim is real." Jared slapped a document on the table. "My client wrote the code. It's a civil matter. As for the embezzlement, here is the provenance of the Midnight Star diamond, tracing back to the Molyneux family estate in 1924. It was never purchased with Sullivan funds. It was inherited. You have zero probable cause for theft. Release her, or I will have your badge for false imprisonment by lunch." Miller looked at the documents. He looked at the sweating sergeant behind the glass. He knew when he was out of his depth. 45 minutes later, Vera walked out of the precinct. The crowd had doubled, but this time Dominic Rawlings was waiting at the bottom of the steps. He stood next to a black SUV, his arms crossed, glaring at the reporters until they backed up. Vera stopped at the top of the stairs. The microphones were thrust toward her. "Vera, do you have a statement?" Vera paused. She looked for the camera with the red "Live" light. "Porter Sullivan says I am a thief," Vera's voice rang out, clear and steady. "He says I stole his code. The truth is, I wrote it to help a husband who was failing his computer science courses. He says I stole his money. The truth is, I gave him my youth, my patience, and my dignity. He took everything else. But he forgot that when you strip a woman of everything she has to lose, you make her fearless." She leaned in closer to the microphones. "I'm not the villain of this story. I'm the audit." She descended the stairs, the silence deafening, and slid into Dominic's car. As they pulled away, Vera's hands finally started to shake. Dominic poured her a glass of water from a flask in the center console. "That was biblical," Dominic said, a mixture of awe and concern on his face. "You're trending worldwide. The Audit is the #1 hashtag on Twitter." "Good," Vera whispered, taking a sip, "because we need public opinion on our side for what comes next. Did Jared get the money?" "The money is safe," Dominic confirmed, "and the forensic accountant started digging an hour ago. Vera, they found something already. It's not just the Caymans." Vera looked at him sharp. "What is it?" "Porter was sloppy. He was arrogant. He thought no one would ever look because he controlled the board," Dominic explained, navigating through the heavy Manhattan traffic. "There are recurring payments to a consulting firm called Apex Solutions, based in D.C., $50,000 a month, for 3 years. It started right before Sullivan Tech got the government contract for the city's traffic grid." Vera's eyes widened. "Apex Solutions. That's Senator Holbrook's brother-in-law's firm. I remember Porter laughing about it at a dinner party once, saying you have to grease the wheels to get municipal contracts." "That's bribery," Dominic said grimly. "That's federal. If we can prove Apex Solutions provided no actual services, Porter isn't just looking at losing his company. He's looking at 20 years in prison." "We need the invoices," Vera said, her mind racing. "We need to prove the money went out." "But no work came back." "Jared is subpoenaing them now," Dominic said, "but Porter will shred them before we get close." "No," Vera said, a sudden memory flashing in her mind. "He won't shred them. He's a hoarder. He keeps trophies. He has a safe in the penthouse, behind the painting of himself in the study. He keeps the leverage on everyone he pays off, just in case they try to double-cross him. The original invoices will be in there." Dominic looked at her. "Vera, you can't go back there. It's a crime scene. He has guards." I don't need to go back, Vera said, a dark smile touching her lips. I still have his iCloud password. He never changed it because he thinks I'm too stupid to know what the cloud is. Porter Sullivan was unraveling. The penthouse, usually a sanctuary of silence and luxury, felt like a cage. The air conditioning was humming too loudly. The light was too bright. Lydia was sitting on the white leather sofa, scrolling through her phone with a look of pure horror. "They're cancelling me, Porter," she whined. "My brand deals. Fashion Nova just dropped me. They said I'm brand risk because I'm associated with a suspected fraudster. Do you know how much money I'm losing?" "Shut up, Lydia," Porter screamed, throwing a crystal tumbler against the wall. It didn't shatter. It just bounced with a dull thud, mocking him. "My stock is down 60%. The Archer deal is dead. The SEC is asking for my files. And you're worried about Fashion Nova. Well, maybe if you hadn't lied about her being broke, none of this would have happened," Lydia yelled back, standing up. "You said she was a nobody. You said she was pathetic. She just owned you on national television." "She is pathetic," Porter roared, pacing the room. "She's bluffing. She doesn't have anything." His phone rang. It was Roger Blaine. "Make it go away, Roger," Porter hissed into the phone. "I can't." Roger's voice was tight, bordering on panic. "Porter, we just received a discovery request from Jared Cohen. They aren't asking about the divorce assets anymore. They're asking for the financials of Apex Solutions." Porter froze. The blood drained from his face so fast he felt dizzy. He gripped the back of a chair to stay upright. "Apex?" he whispered. How do they know about Apex?" "I don't know," Roger said. "But if they find the link between Apex and Senator Holbrook, the Department of Justice gets involved. Porter, if you have any documents, any physical records linking you to those payments, you need to burn them. Now. Tonight." I understand," Porter said. He hung up the phone. His hands were trembling violently. He looked at the painting of himself on the far wall, a commissioned portrait of him standing like Napoleon. Behind it was the wall safe, the insurance policy, the proof that he owned the senator. "What is it?" Lydia asked, watching him with narrowed eyes. "What's wrong?" "Pack a bag," Porter said, his voice hollow. "We're going to the Hamptons' house. Tonight. I need to get out of the city." "I'm not going to the Hamptons with you," Lydia scoffed. "I'm going to a hotel. I need space, Porter." "You're coming with me." He grabbed her wrist. "If I go down, you go down. Who paid for that Cartier bracelet? Who pays for your lease? You think the feds won't look at you as an accomplice?" Lydia's face paled. She yanked her arm back. "You're hurting me." "Get the bag," Porter snarled. He marched to the painting and swung it open. He punched in the code. The safe beeped and clicked open. Inside were stacks of cash, passports, and a thick black binder. The Apex binder. He grabbed the binder. He needed to incinerate it, but he couldn't do it here. The smoke detectors were too sensitive. He would do it at the beach house. He would bury the ashes in the sand. He shoved the binder into his briefcase. Unbeknownst to Porter, while he was arguing with Lydia, his iPad on the kitchen counter lit up. It was a silent push notification. iCloud backup complete. Location: penthouse master bedroom. Device: Porter's iPhone 15 Pro. 3 miles away, in the suite at the St. Regis, Vera sat in front of a laptop. Beside her, Jared Cohen and Dominic were watching the screen. "He just accessed the safe," Vera said, pointing to the screen. "Look at the timestamp on the Notes app sync. He opened a file called Safe Combo 2 minutes ago. He's panicking." "Can we access the files remotely?" Jared asked. "No, the documents are physical," Vera said. "But look at this." She clicked on Find My iPhone. "He's moving. He's leaving the building." "He's running," Dominic said. He's got the evidence and he's running. We have to stop him, Vera said, standing up. If he destroys those papers, we lose the leverage. We can't stop him, Jared said, checking his watch. The police won't mobilize on a hunch. We don't need the police to stop him, Dominic said, a dangerous glint in his eye. We just need to delay him long enough for the police to have a reason to pull him over. How? Vera asked. Dominic pulled out his phone. I still have contacts from my shipping days. Men who drive very large, very slow trucks. What route is he taking? Vera checked the GPS tracker on Porter's phone. He's heading towards the Midtown Tunnel. He's going to Long Island. Perfect. Dominic dialed a number. Hey, Sal. Yeah, it's Dom. I need a favor. You have any trucks near the Midtown Tunnel? Great. I need a gridlock. A bad one. Make it look like a breakdown. Yeah, I owe you. He hung up. He's not getting out of Manhattan tonight. Porter's driver honked the horn for the 10th time. They hadn't moved in 20 minutes. The approach to the Midtown Tunnel was a parking lot. What is going on? Porter shouted, slamming his hand against the partition. It's a mess, sir, the driver said. Looks like 2 cement trucks collided right at the toll booth. Nothing is moving. Porter clutched the briefcase to his chest. He felt like the walls of the car were closing in on him. He looked out the window. People were walking faster than the cars. I'm getting out, Porter said. Sir? I said I'm getting out. I'll walk to the ferry. Open the door. Porter scrambled out of the car, clutching the briefcase. Lydia stayed inside, refusing to move. I'm not walking in heels, Porter. Fine, stay there and rot, Porter yelled. He began to run, weaving through the stalled cars. He looked like a madman, a CEO in a bespoke suit, sprinting down 34th Street, clutching a leather bag like a life raft. He didn't notice the black Aston Martin idling in the service lane 3 blocks down. Vera watched him through the passenger window. There he is. Dominic shifted the car into gear. Jared called Detective Miller. He told him he has credible intel that a suspect in a federal bribery case is fleeing the jurisdiction with evidence. Will Miller come? Miller hates being played, Dominic said. And after you embarrassed him this morning, he's dying for a win. Look. Sirens wailed in the distance, cutting through the stagnant traffic. Blue and red lights reflected off the glass skyscrapers. Porter heard them too. He stopped running. He looked around wildly. He was near the heliport now. Maybe he could charter a chopper. No, that would leave a flight plan. He looked at the briefcase. The evidence. If they caught him with it, it was over. If he dumped it. He ran toward the railing, overlooking the East River. He would throw it in. The water would ruin the ink. It would wash away the sins. He reached the railing and lifted the briefcase over his head. Porter! The voice stopped him. He froze. He turned around. Vera stood 10 yards away. She wasn't wearing the diamond gown anymore. She was wearing a sharp white suit, looking like an avenging angel. Dominic stood behind her, silent and imposing. Don't do it, Porter, Vera said calmly. The East River is shallow here. Divers will find it in an hour, and tampering with evidence adds 5 years to the sentence. You, Porter panted, his chest heaving. You did this! You ruined me! You ruined yourself, Vera said, stepping closer. I just turned on the lights. I made you, Porter screamed, tears streaming down his face, mixing with sweat. You were nothing without me, just a quiet little mouse. The mouse pulled the thorn out of the lion's paw, Vera said. And then she realized the lion was just a sick, sad cat. I'll deny everything, Porter shouted. It's just paper. It's over, Porter, Vera said softly. Look behind you. Porter turned. Detective Miller and 4 uniformed officers had their guns drawn. "Drop the bag, Mr. Sullivan," Miller shouted. "Drop it now." Porter looked at the water. He looked at the police. He looked at Vera. For a second, Vera thought he might jump. But Porter Sullivan was a coward. He always had been. He slowly lowered the briefcase to the pavement. He raised his hands. As the officers swarmed him, wrestling him into handcuffs, he didn't look at the police. He stared at Vera with eyes full of hate. Vera didn't look away. She watched until they shoved him into the back of a squad car. Dominic walked up beside her. "Are you okay?" Vera took a deep breath of the cold river air. It smelled like gasoline and salt, but to her, it smelled like freedom. "I'm fine," she said. "Actually, I'm hungry. Can we get a burger? A really greasy one?" Dominic laughed, a rich, warm sound. "I know a place." But the story wasn't quite over. Porter was in custody, but the fallout was just beginning, and Vera had one last loose end to tie up. Lydia, and the future of the company she had helped build. 6 months after the gala, the ruins of Sullivan Tech were smouldering. The stock was trading for pennies, and the board of directors sat in the Hudson Yards headquarters, looking like men awaiting execution. "We have to liquidate," George Abernathy, the interim chairman, said, wiping sweat from his brow. "The brand is toxic. We sell the building, pay the creditors, and walk away." "You can't sell the assets," the legal counsel muttered. "Vera Molyneux's copyright claim freezes the algorithm. We don't own the product anymore." "Then it's over," Abernathy groaned. The heavy oak doors swung open. The room went dead silent. Vera Molyneux strode in. Gone was the diamond gown. In its place was a razor-sharp charcoal suit. She moved with the lethal confidence of a woman who had already won. Flanking her were Dominic Rawlings and Jared Cohen. "You can't be in here." Abernathy stood up, trembling. "This is a closed meeting." "Sit down, George," Dominic said, his voice dropping the temperature in the room by 10 degrees. "We are the meeting." Jared Cohen slid a single document down the mahogany table. It stopped perfectly in front of Abernathy. "As of this morning," Jared announced, "Rawlings Capital and Ms. Molyneux have acquired the remaining floating stock. Combined with the court-awarded asset reclamation, they control 62% of the voting shares. The hostile takeover is complete." The board members froze. They had been so busy trying to save their own skins, they hadn't noticed the wolf at the door. Vera walked to the head of the table, Porter's old seat. She didn't sit. She gripped the leather chair and looked down at the men who had once treated her like furniture. "Sullivan Tech is dead," Vera stated coldly. "The name is poison." "We know," Abernathy snapped. "That's why we're liquidating." "We are not liquidating," Vera corrected him. "We are rebranding. The algorithm is brilliant. I know because I wrote it. We are pivoting to secure medical data encryption. A cleaner market for a cleaner company." She tossed a packet onto the table. "Effective immediately, the company is renamed Helix Systems, and I am the CEO. "You," Abernathy scoffed. "You're a copy editor." "I'm the architect of the product you've been selling for 5 years. Vera leaned in, her eyes hard. "And unlike my predecessor, I don't need to bribe senators to make a profit. You have 2 choices. Resign now and cash out at rock bottom, or stay. Answer to me, and I will make you richer in 3 years than Porter promised to make you in 10. Silence stretched, heavy and suffocating. Then, slowly, Abernathy closed his folder. He looked at Vera, really looked at her, and nodded. The king was dead. Long live the queen. 2 days later, the air inside the Metropolitan Detention Center was stale and hopeless. Vera sat on the visitor's side of the plexiglass. Porter sat on the other. He looked hollowed out, hair thinning, skin sallow, the orange jumpsuit hanging off his frame like a shroud. He picked up the receiver, his hand shaking. "You came to gloat?" "I came to say goodbye," Vera said simply. She pressed a photo against the glass. It showed the new signage going up on the headquarters, Helix Systems. Porter stared at it, his eyes watering. "You erased my name." "You erased it yourself, Porter," she said. "I just painted over the stain." "Lydia left me," he whispered, his voice cracking. "She's in Miami with a DJ. She sold the engagement ring. She called it emotional damages." "Lydia was a symptom, not the disease," Vera replied, her voice steady. "You surrounded yourself with people who loved your money. When the money left, so did they." "And Dominic?" Porter sneered weakly. "Does he love you? Or does he just love the deal?" "Dominic was there when I had nothing. He saw me when I was invisible," Vera said, standing up. "That's the difference between a partner and a possession. Something you never understood." She hung up the phone. "I'm keeping the Hamptons' house," she added through the glass, though he couldn't hear her. "Consider it my severance package." She walked away, the sound of Porter banging his fist against the glass fading behind her. She didn't look back. That evening, the rooftop terrace of the St. Regis was bathed in the golden glow of the city lights. A private party was underway to celebrate the launch of Helix Systems. Vera stood at the railing, a glass of champagne in her hand, looking out at the skyline. She felt light. The weight of the last 3 years, the secrets, the shame, the anger, had finally evaporated. "You look like you own the city," Dominic said, stepping up beside her. "Not the city," Vera turned to him, a genuine smile softening her face. "Just my own life." "That's enough." "The market loves the rebrand," Dominic said, clinking his glass against hers. "Helix stock is up 15% in after-hours trading. You're officially a multimillionaire again. On your own terms." "It feels real this time," she admitted. Dominic reached into his pocket and produced a small velvet box. Vera's breath hitched, but he smiled gently. "Relax, I'm not proposing. Not yet," he teased. "I know you need time to be free." He opened the box. Inside was a simple, elegant, platinum lapel pin in the shape of a helix. "A founder's pin," Dominic said. "Yours is the only one made of platinum. You did the work, Viv. I just drove the getaway car." He pinned it to her lapel, his fingers lingering for a moment near her heart. It was a grounding touch, a promise of support without control. "Thank you, Dominic," she whispered. "For everything." They turned back to the view. Below them, the world continued to spin, loud and chaotic. But up here, in the quiet victory of the night, Vera Molyneux finally knew who she was. She wasn't a victim. She wasn't an ex-wife. She was the CEO of her own destiny. And she was just getting started. Vera's journey from a discarded wife in a drafty apartment to the CEO of a tech empire wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming her identity. Porter Sullivan made the fatal mistake of confusing silence with submission. He thought that because Vera didn't shout, she didn't have a voice. He learned the hard way that the quietest people often have the loudest minds. This story reminds us that true worth isn't found in the diamonds you wear, but in the resilience of your character. When life strips you down to nothing, that is when you find out who you truly are. Vera didn't just get even, she got better. She turned her pain into power, proving that the best revenge isn't destruction, but massive, undeniable success. If you enjoyed this story of justice, served cold and diamonds served colder, please hit the like button to support the channel. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss a new story. Share this video with a friend who needs a reminder that they are stronger than they think. What would you have done in Vera's shoes? Let me know in the comments below.